Physical Therapy. Welcome to a little squat episode, another one, some of my favorite. Today we're going to be going through and kind of playing with incorporating this block right here. So at home you'll need foot up on kind of a step, some type of little block. It's a good kind of 3 inches or so, 6 inches. Initially it'd be too much, but this is something that we're going to use to kind of load the butt and the hip, as well as kind of the foot and the ankle. What I like to do with kind of a block, I like to go with my staggered stance squat positionings. So I'll go in an LXX position in which the right foot is back and both feet are pointed forward. What I like to do with these squats now, typically, depending on what I'm going after, but a thing that I like to incorporate are some 3-dimensional kind of penny swings, which we'll get to in a minute, and some squats with some in-sync rotational reaches to load up the butt, as well as the foot and the ankle. So what we'll do first, we'll talk about and think about the pelvis, and what this actually does with the block under the foot. So with the block under the foot, it basically brings the ground up higher. It brings the ground up higher so that as I start to decelerate, this leg right here, the tibia and the fibula, come forward faster because of what's taking place at the foot and the ankle right here. So when I'm just straight in the sagittal plane and I'm just straight kind of reaching forward right here, I get some good eversion at the subtalar joint, which allows the leg to kind of collapse and decelerate forward faster while unlocking the midfoot. As it does that, you have a big thigh bone right here that goes into flexion. So femur shoots up as the pelvis then rotates forward. This pelvis rotates forward, so you have this right here, more of that right there. So it expedites the kind of flexion-like process, and then once we start to add our pendulum swings or upper extremity drivers, it kind of takes it to a whole nother level. So let's start off with right here. I like this for those that are having really trouble kind of getting the pelvis going, and then we'll add some side shifts. So keep it simple. Let's go in that LXX position, and let's just go ahead and drop the butt and reach forward about knee high. Both feet, it's important right now that they're pointed forward. You're often going to see that foot and that ankle bail on out from foot and ankle mobility restrictions, and or hip restrictions. And now let's go in sync, 45-degree angle to the right, and as I start to do that, this resembles biomechanically what happens at gait when we're walking, and that the foot and the ankle, that heel, starting to invert as I'm getting the dorsiflexion. So the mid-tarsal joint is locking up, and I'm getting some good internal rotation of the right hip because the pelvis is rotating to the left with my arms, both arms reaching in sync. Spins the pelvis from the top down faster than on the femur, so it loads up the butt. Good. And then we'll go 90 degrees. I'm math. And then we'll try and go 125 to kind of 130. And as you do that, foot again is pointed forward. This would be a great little assessment tool as well in terms of going into that squat and getting some good active range of motion at the ankle, get the goni on there, little dorsiflexion. What we'll do next, we're going to add some pendulum swings. So with that, we can use both arms. So as I squat, I'm swinging my arms from overhead posteriorly to kind of get that pelvis teeter-tottering with a little posterior reach, kind of ankle high on the swing down. Or I could just go single arm. I go single arm with a little reach. We'll get into the combos in a second. What we'll do next with kind of that frontal plane swing to load up the hip into adduction and deflection. It's that little pendulum swing down and to the right. And I can use a little driver of the hips as well as I'll do here to kind of load up that adduction a little bit more. If I want to then kind of get a little flexion and abduction here and load up the left hip, go a little pendy swing in the opposite direction in the frontal plane. And now some of my favorites, kind of that rotational plane, transverse. As I squat, my upper extremity is going to help take the pelvis to the right to load up the butt and the hip, but then also to get that good dorsiflexion and inversion at the right foot and ankle with the good anterior rotation of the pelvis. I go in the opposite direction, so I go kind of out of sync with my rotation, get some dorsiflexion and eversion at the right foot and ankle, get some relative extension at the right hip and internal rotation at the left. And now let's kind of, some of my favorites are to combine these. I'm going to show you my 2 or 3 most wanted when it comes to that. And again, kind of the staggering is going to be dictated based on mobility of the hips as well as the feet and ankles. Something for you to discover and explore. Pendulum swings, combos, right arm swings back, left arm down and to the right. So I am with my right arm facilitating the pelvis being thrown forward as the wooden platform, the block, is forcing the collapse from the bottom on up. My left arm here is helping me load that right hip and that side to side plane more. And now let's add kind of the rotation with the left arm. So that'll give me more inversion, more locking up of the mid-tarsal joint, and more internal rotation at the right hip. So those are some pretty cool things to kind of explore and kind of to play with, and that was only an LXX position. If I wanted to go after a little more internal rotation of the right hip, I would take my foot and I'd position myself in maybe an LXI position or an LXI position uncommon in which only the right hip and foot and ankle are rotated in. So I'm getting some good dorsiflexion and inversion, but then I'm also getting a super huge load at the right butt and hip. I could, in this position, go kind of an LXE, but with kind of an uncommon left kind of foot position in which only the left is rotated out. So I can go after the left growing a little bit more to force the pelvis to kind of collapse on the left side right there. Or I could go E on kind of both sides. With that, go a little frontal plane pendy swing, kind of in sync with that LXI positioning. And then I can also go back to that LXI, the uncommon with only the right foot and hip internally rotated. And I could go a little in sync frontal plane, a little in sync kind of transverse, and that's really taking up some major slack. So squat matrix, wooden block, cement block, you could use foot on something such as a rock as well. So nice something simple, kind of on the ground. You can actually have kind of almost like a little teeter-totter action with that as well, a little mini BAPS. This thing wants to kind of twist and rotate, swing all over the place, which makes it unstable, which is perfect for us. Mimics life, competition, and sport. Being able to control the body in unpredictable, unstable situations and environments. Take these and play around with them. When it comes to the feet and the ankles and the hips, everything works together. The squat, in terms of level change progression, think back into the motor milestone charts that we talked about. At the age of 10 months to a year, 14 months, little humans, little Homo sapiens, little cave creatures, they're starting to squat, and they're starting to be able to master that really well. They're able to, at any point in time, just get down in a good deep squat position. Over time, it's interesting that society and culture kind of strips us from that great art, and that we lose foot and ankle mobility, we lose hip mobility, we start to accumulate pain, wear and tear, fatigue. We need adaptation to be driven by variety. We need neuroplasticity, so change. When you think of plastic, think of moldable. We need the neuromuscular system together to work together and be driven by proprioception. Proprioception is accumulated sensory information. We do that through vastly unique, different, variety-filled environments that are really feeding into the system in terms of spatial and body awareness. Take these squat progressions and go ahead and